independence, the founding fathers of Nigeria became at the helm of affairs. Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa emerged as the Prime Minister. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe became the first indigenous Governor General of Nigeria and later President. Sir Ahmadu Bello Sardauna Sakwato became the Premier of the Northern Region. Chief Samuel Ladoke Akintola for the Western Region, Chief Michael Okpara for the East, and Sir Dennis Osadebe became the Premier of the Midwestern Region when the region was created 3 years later in August 1963.
Expert advice, technical aid, we are late in the race for industrial development. We have the resources, but not the technical know-how.
There's one trouble about our politics here in relation with the British. Anytime an African becomes very loud and becomes very extreme against colonialism, then he's branded communist.
Now, as a little girl, spending my holidays with my grandparents in the village, part of my daily chore was to help clean my grandmother's mud kitchen. I can remember the smell of wet mud and fresh banana stem, which we used to clean the walls and the floor. I can also remember how cool it was inside when it was so hot outside.
Taxation, that depressing but constant reality on the minds of everyone.
On a particular spot might turn out to be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Mere okay for deadline resistance.
It is obvious that's a negative relationship.
Let me clearly reiterate the resolve of this administration to ensure all persons abducted by the insurgents are rescued or released safely.
President Buhari restates government's commitment to rescuing and securing release of all abducted persons by insurgents.
Surrender prohibited and illegal firearms before March the 14th or face the wrath of the law, the Nigerian police warns.
Only credible voters register with eligible voters will be used to conduct 2019 general election, INEC assures.
Whatever we need to do to clean up the voter register, the Commission is committed to doing so.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on Dapchi, 1 week after, plus countering terrorism and violent extremism.
Now, just when Nigerians were looking forward to the release of the remaining Chibok schoolgirls and others after the recent release of the abducted University of Maiduguri lecturers, that's alongside other abductees, Nigerians and indeed the world received a shocking report of the attack on Government Girls Science and Technical School, Dapchi, in Yobe State.
That's right, Rhoda. The news of the abduction last week brought bitter memories of the Chibok girls, and again also highlighted the fact that the insurgents, as it were, not accepting their defeat just yet, as they continue to plot to perpetrate as much mayhem as they can while the military mop-up operations continue.
And you know, Kingsley, the most disturbing part of this is that as we speak right now, about 110 girls are still not yet accounted for, and that this has actually thrown that community into uncertainty, into trauma.
That's right. That's part of what we were saying a moment ago, that these are bitter memories that are being provoked all over again. Of course, the Yobe state is not Borno, it's in Chibok. That the first incident happened about 4 years ago. But Yobe state itself has been under a series of assaults in the course of the Boko Haram terrorist activities. We recall what happened at Buniyade, which is secondary school, where the terrorists struck and killed some 29 students at the time, plus what has happened in this particular incident. So the families, or the parents or the guardians or residents of the state have been through this path in the past. But of course, this latest abduction, 110 students all accounted for, it's a huge one.
And you know, the fact that the federal government has just immediately sent a fact-finding, you know, a mission to Dapchi has actually helped in a way to douse the tension. Well,
of course, you'll recall that when the story first broke, there was initial confusion as to what had happened. There were reports that the military had rescued some the students who were abducted, but that was later corrected. Again, there's some misconstruction of the matters at that particular time. And of course, we saw the state governor himself also going to visit Dapchi, seeking to camp Fred Nep. So what is on now is that the federal government delegation is right there. The military has also deployed a wide range of platforms, that's including the Air Force, to get on top of the situation. That's right. So, but we'll be taking a look at that particular subject in our discussion segment today, finding out exactly what happened at Dapchi and what efforts are being made at the moment to ensure the rescue of the students who still are unaccounted for. The last number we got, of course, is still 110.
Lots and lots of questions, I tell you.
Right.
Lots of questions, blame game, and all of that.
Yeah, but of course, we're going to try to avoid all the blame game. What's going on now is how do you rescue
the girls?
The girls, you know, who are yet to be accounted for. That's particularly important as well, because all the parents and the guardians and relatives are waiting anxiously for good news coming out from the ongoing operations.
But you remember that earlier on there was actually news broke out that the girls had been rescued, and after a while, I think that report was...
yeah, that's I talked about that earlier. There's some... as I said, misconstruction of whatever the issues were at the material time. But all of that, of course, has been overtaken by events. And what we know is that 110 of them are still to be accounted for. That's the first topic of our discussion on Good Morning Nigeria today. Later on in the course of the conversation, we'll be taking on a related item, namely dealing with
violence.
Extremism. And then extremism, as well as, of course, the counter-terrorism measures that should help in the tailpiece, as it were, of having to do with the Boko Haram that has been around for almost 10 years now. That's right.
All right, I'm Rhoda, and I'm welcoming you to the program, and we're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Rhoda and also welcome you to the program, in the course of which we shall have our regular companion segments. And this includes newspaper review, business, sports, and others. In the meantime, here's our colleague Joy Osiago with the early morning news. Hi, Joy.
Good morning, Kingsley and Rhoda, and good morning to you out there. President Muhammadu Buhari has reaffirmed the federal government's unshakable resolve to ensure that all abducted persons by various groups of insurgents are rescued or released safely and reintegrated into the society. Receiving the 3 lecturers of the University of Maiduguri and some women who gained freedom recently, the president also promised to ensure that no stone will be left unturned towards degrading and containing the criminal elements for the return of peace to the land.
While thanking the security agencies and all those who facilitated this, let me clearly reiterate the resolve of this administration to ensure all persons abducted by the insurgents are rescued or released safely. I have since directed all security agencies to immediately ensure that every effort is directed to ensure the safety of our schools and students, as well as bringing back the abducted girls to their families.
Meanwhile, the federal government's delegation on the Dapchi school students' adoption say they are designing a strategy that will see to the safe rescue of the adopted students, as well as fortify security of schools in the state. This was part of the agreements reached when the federal government's delegation visited the state for the second time since the incident occurred.
Henceforth, the police and the Civil Defense Corps will ensure that their presence are strong in every school. And secondly, the security agencies, the outfits, are working together and they are synergizing to ensure that these girls are recovered as fast as possible.
In the meantime, the Nigerian Air Force has deployed additional air assets, including intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platforms, to the northeast in a renewed effort at locating the missing Dapchi girls. Helicopters have been deployed to search for the possible location and the missing girls, as well as the Boko Haram terrorists. In a statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force Air Vice Marshal Olatukumbo Adesonya, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, directed the immediate deployment of NAF personnel, which will spare no effort at possibly getting the girls back via its air operations. The Nigerian Air Force is calling on all Nigerians, especially the locals, who might have any information that could lead to the location of the girls, to advise the authorities. Still on security matters, the Nigerian police force insists that the 21 days ultimatum for surrendering of prohibited and illegal firearms still stands. Inspector General of Police Ibrahim Idris, represented by the Force Public Relations Officer Jimo Moshood, informed media in Abuja that mob seizure and recovery will commence on March 14, 2018.
With prohibited firearms under the expiration of the 21 days will be arrested, investigated, and prosecuted.
And turning to other issues now, Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki has identified legislative framework and policy direction as key ways to tackle the scourge of illegal migration and human trafficking in the country. He was speaking at the Senate Roundtable on Migration and Human Trafficking holding in Benin.
The roundtable is intended to draw attention to the situation and give confidence to our people, to let them know that we are troubled by this. We are losing sleep over irregular migration and human trafficking, and we are determined as representatives of the people to do something about this.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has declared open a two-day international conference on Lake Chad in Abuja. Organized by the federal government of Nigeria and the Lake Chad Basin Commission with the support of UNESCO. The conference has the theme, Saving Lake Chad to Revitalize the Basin's Ecosystem for Sustainable Livelihood, Security and Development.
Now shrunk, we're told, by 90% of its size, from a peak of 25,000 square kilometers to currently somewhere in the region of about 1,350 square kilometers. The implications of this are grave indeed.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is assuring Nigerians that only credible voters registered with eligible voters will be used in the conduct of the 2019 general elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakub said this at the 2018 first quarterly consultative meeting with the media and society organizations.
Credible voter register will be used for the 2019 general elections. Whatever we need to do to clean up the voter register, the Commission is committed to doing so.
That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Rhoda and Kingsley after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Nigeria's Continuity and Progressives for Buhari Osibanjo 2019 invites all Nigerians to a national rally for Buhari Osibanjo Continuity 2019 at the Eagle Square, Abuja on 28 February 2018 by 10 a.m. We support continuity for these great achievements. 14 local governments freed from Boko Haram control, Nigerian military better equipped, continued peace in the Niger Delta, release of 100 Chibok girls and 16,000 persons under Boko Haram control, entrenching accountability and transparency in governance, taking Nigeria out of the worst recession in 3 decades, elimination of 30,000 ghost workers through reforming the civil service, massive investment in agriculture and fertilizer distribution, improving rail and roads infrastructure, the take-up of the Niger Bridge, the federal government's new vision on the Niger Delta, creation of 30 billion naira development funds, Ogoni cleanup, Mambila power plant, improving Nigeria's international image, billions of stolen funds recovered. Buhari Osibanjo 2019, promoting the change agenda for a bright future for all. All APC governors, ministers, heads of parastatals, and stakeholders are invited. Honorable Amos Adamuyat, National Organizing Secretary, announcer.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now? Sure. This gets just 1. It is clean. But not perfect 10. Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible. Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X. Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet. Wow. Now you also take that Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. Nurofen Express works at the source of pain, fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Cold and flu can spread through the contact of hands. And in such situations, I can't risk falling ill. So I recommend Dettol, as it protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why I want to be Dettol sure. Dettol, be 100%.
All right, you're welcome back, and now it's time for us to take a look at some business stories. With the federal government urging states to domesticate the National Social Protection Policy for its effective implementation. Plus, equities market extends gain to open the week on a marginally positive note. Let's join our correspondent, Joy Uza, for details of the stories.
Welcome to Business News. Federal government is not relenting at ensuring the success of the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VADS, as the Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, and the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, will on Thursday, March 1, meet with business leaders, business owners and taxpayers in Kaduna. The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, has identified regular tax payments by Nigerians as fundamental to the growth and development of the country. She noted that predictable tax revenue inflow would lead to more investment by the federal and state governments in infrastructure and job and wealth creation across the nation. Currently, we have 14 million taxpayers out of 70 million who are economically active, the minister noted. Also, the federal government has called on states to embrace, adapt and domesticate the National Social Protection Policy, NSPP, so that it can be sustained after the withdrawal of federal support. The Permanent Secretary Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Olajide Odewale, made a call at a stakeholder meeting on presentation of the guideline to domestication of the National Social Protection Policy, Child Poverty Report, and other strategic documents towards implementation of the NSPP. He lauded Federal Executive Council for approving the NSPP and the role played in the implementation of some of the strategies identified in the policy. In a goodwill message, the Special Advisor to the President on Social Protection, Mrs. Miriam Wise, commended the stakeholders for their support in ensuring that the Social Protection Policy came into being and was approved by the Federal Executive Council in 2017. She stated that the school feeding program of the Social Intervention Program is empowering farmers and putting measures geared towards bringing the poverty level to the lowest level. Meanwhile, the Consumer Protection Council, CPC, has congratulated Airpeace on another major milestone on its journey to becoming a major carrier in Nigeria by acquiring a Boeing 777, which the council referred to as a tried and tested equipment with a legendary reputation for comfort and versatility, as well as a remarkable record of safety. The Director General noted that Airpeace's acquisition of this world-class aircraft and how it has grown both its fleet and routes in an almost meteoric manner is a testament to the possibilities in the Nigerian market and the abiding custom of consumers. While welcoming this historic development, he said the Council again encourages Airpeace to renew and redouble its commitment to the best possible service and difference to consumers, noting that therein only lies the key to unlocking further and enduring growth. The aviation industry remains one of the most vital catalysts for economic growth and shared prosperity. The Director General further observed that the Council recognizes that fleet renewal is key to accomplishing these objectives and commends the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority for the dynamism that has resulted in the landmark in the aviation development. And from the capital market, Nigerian stocks extends gain to open the week positive. The NSE All-Share Index inches up marginally by 0.02% to close at 42,579.48 basis points. Next is a graphic summary. That's it on Business News. Many thanks for watching. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, there for us on our Business News segment. Time now for us to take a look at the dailies that we have this morning. It's time for the newspaper review.
All right, our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoibe, is right here with us in the studios for the review session today. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Rhoda.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Rhoda, let's begin. There are stories that have come onto the front pages of the papers, matters relating to the 2019 election, issues arising from the Dapchi abduction, and then also some cheering news on the new minimum wage. Let's begin with the Punch newspaper. The lead story for the Punch says, with a double-decker headline, Army admits withdrawing troops before girl's abduction. And the writer says it handed over to police in Dapchi. Army didn't hand over to us, Yobe Police Commissioner, and Buhari pledges release of abducted persons, hosts freed lecturers. You can see the photograph there on the front page of the Punch newspaper, shows the president along with the persons who were previously abducted but released by Boko Haram elements. They were at the villa yesterday. So that's the lead story for the Punch newspaper. And then you also have, of course, matters arising, as I indicated, on the issue there. I think you also have it.
And it's the same story you read now from the Punch, and that's the same thing is also leading on the New Telegraph. And the New Telegraph says Army police trade blame over abduction of 110 girls. And then let's quickly move over to the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun leads with it. It says DSS negotiates with Boko Haram. How security outfit held talks with two factions for the release of uni-made lecturers, women, while rescue took long, says Buhari. And that picture story on the New Telegraph, the same thing you also have on the Punch, and that's the lecturers and the women who were released by the Boko Haram with President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House. All right, Bayo, let's begin with that story first.
Well, you see, the challenge brought about by the abduction of the Dapchi girls is what is playing out between the army and the police. Yeah. Before now, for Yobe State, for a long time, insurgency had been, in fact, for over 6 months, there were no attack or no trace of insurgency at all. And so the army is arguing that their job there had been completed. Yeah. But there was no formal handing over to police, and the police are now take over for civil law and order protection. But the point that the governor makes is still germane, which meant that 1 week to the adoption, there was apparently no security in that area. But the problem now and the challenge now is how to rescue the girls, not the blame. That is the way moving forward. But the cheering news is that 10 women and 3 lecturers. The 10 women were abducted as far back as June 20th of 2017. Actually, they were going on a funeral procession. 6 of them were killed. In fact, many people have forgotten. 6 of them were killed in that incident. But luckily, these 10 women were now rescued. These 3 other lecturers, too, while they were being received yesterday, the president used the occasion to say that the administration is committed to ensure that all those who have been abducted, including the recent Dapchi girls, are rescued safely. And the Director General of the DSS, who actually was involved in the negotiations, has explained that the negotiations took so long because they didn't want to use force to risk the life of those that have been captured. And secondly, they had to negotiate with 2 separate groups. That was why it took such long. But the concern of the lecturers is that they still say that from their experience, they find it a nightmare to go back to the university. They are asking for a relocation or another job.
All right. Bayo, just before we bring in other headlines, the story on whether the military handed over to the police in Yobe or not, the deputy spokesperson of the military, the army in this case, indicated that what happened was that they handed over to the police. Of course, the police commissioner in Yobe is denying that, according to one of the headlines. But that the military had to go to a place called Kanama on the border between Nigeria and Niger, because the insurgents were attacking some military formations in that particular location, which meant that there was an urgent need for the military to redeploy troops to that particular location. But as you indicated,
there was no coordination.
That would appear to be the case. That would appear to be the case. But we do hope that all of that will be ironed out, sorted out going forward. Now, let's take this other headline, Leadership newspaper. The lead story for Leadership newspaper is on elections. It says, INEC National Assembly set for showdown over election sequence. With the rider, our timetable stands. That's according to INEC. That story is on page 6 in greater detail. We also have that story on the front page of the Punch newspaper above the nameplate of the Punch. Presidential poll will hold first, INEC insists. And then you have the rider there, South and Middle Belt leaders meet, demand probe or register. Details of that story can be found on pages 11 and 14. And another political story that is related to that would be it's an earpiece just beside the nameplate of the Punch. Says Buhari wants APC against imposition of candidates. That's on 43. Now, the lead story also for Blueprint is on politics. And then the second lead story just below that is also on election timetable. Let's take that story first, the headline, the one below the photograph there. It says, 2019 elections timetable stands. Yakubu insists. Yakubu is chairman of INEC. OK's Bello's registration transfer from Abuja to Okene. Bello, of course, is Yaya Bello, governor of Kogi State. Lead story, tough time awaits APC in 2019, Oyegun admits. Party needs unity than before. That's according to President Buhari. And chairman and others get tenure allegation. That's on page 6.
And that's the running story also too on the New Telegraph. It's just at the foot of the paper. That's 2019, not going back on election timetable, says INEC. 8 million PVCs still awaiting collection nationwide. 8 million PVCs still awaiting collection nationwide. And that's a story that's also on the Daily Sun. On the Daily Sun, just beside the picture story there, says 2019 elections will stand by our timetable, says INEC Electoral Commission, right until amendment becomes law, says Senate. All right, Bayo, let's
I think I agree with that headline you read. Yeah. That is more like presenting it as it is. Yeah. The other ones that Kingsley read earlier on, I'm afraid there's some element of editorializing in what the INEC chairman said. And INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yahya, says INEC has no reason to change the current timetable released by it. However, he says INEC sees no legal lacuna as for now. However, if something happens tomorrow, we will come out and tell Nigerians. You recall that INEC actually announced the timetable January 9th for the presidential election to come on February 16th and the state elections and the state assembly and governor's election for March 2nd. 2 weeks later, on January 23rd, the House of Rep amended Section 25 of the Electoral Act 25(1) ABC, and that provided 3 days for the elections. The concurrence also came up February 7th. And so INEC is saying we stand by our
times. All right, Bayo.
Those are the facts.
Yeah, that's right. That's another story on politics. We have that just below the nameplate of Blueprint newspaper, just before we take other headlines. It says, the headline says, I'll sue Buhari if he refuses re-election. That's according to a youth leader. The story is in greater detail on page 7. So find out who that youth leader is threatening to sue President Buhari if he declines re-election. Now, the other headline there, Rhoda, of course, is on new minimum wage. Yeah. It says new minimum wage for workers, September. That's according to the federal government. That story is also on the front page of the Punch newspaper above the nameplate. And then you also have it there on the front page of the Leadership newspaper, just beside the photograph. New minimum wage ready in Q3. Q3 stands for third quarter, according to the federal government.
And it's also just on the New Telegraph, just above the nameplate. It says federal government workers expect minimum wage by that's Q3, that's the third quarter. And let's take the editorial on the authority. It's on the new minimum wage, and I'll just read an excerpt from it. It says, as is still within immediate recall, the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC in 2016 had, through its president, Comrade Ayuba Waba, as much as threatened to proceed on an indefinite strike if government failed to accede to its demands for 56,000 naira minimum wage by Labour Day, May 1st last year. According to the fire-eating Labour leader, this was the most needful, as upward review of the 18,000 naira on which it had stood was due and overdue in one and the same wavelength. Bio.
Well, let's start with the story that Kingsley read. Do you say they are going to force President Muhammadu Buhari to contest for 2019 elections? Have they heard of the saying, force the horse to the river? Well, can you force it to drink? Well, coming to about the minimum wage, there is a 40th anniversary of the Nigerian Labour Congress, and the Honorable Minister for Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, had told them at that meeting that before September, the national minimum wage will be ready. And the audience there shouted, no, 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 it's taking too long. And the minister reminded them that as required by law, there's supposed to be a tripartite committee as required by ILO section 144, and for which it's working now. After that, they will now set up what he described as Nigeria Labour Advisory Council. And all things being equal, if that is done in June, by September, the new minimum wage will be ready. But the new minimum wage is also a question, a critical question that the Labour has also changed its position. The minimum wage was 18,000 naira per annum. Yeah. And at that time it was set, it was equivalent to about $90 then. Yeah. Now, NLC 2 years ago had proposed about 56,000 naira as a minimum wage. That again was about equivalent to $281. Now, Nigeria Labour is saying that 56,000 is not realistic. They are now going in for about 110,000 naira as the realistic minimum wage. The question is, states, government, and other institutions that have not been able to meet the demands of 18,000 naira, how will they meet these other ones? And if you go by the ILO standard, using $100 as the least minimum wage, then it means, or if you go by what we took before as 18,000 when it was $90 equivalent. Yeah. If you come by today's exchange rate, it means, which is about 360, 362, it means the ideal minimum wage should be about 360,000, 32,400 in fact. Well, going by.
Yeah, suppose we now have the naira exchanging at 100 to the US dollar, so you lower the minimum wage.
Well, what happens when the rate?
All right, Bayo, just before we go, that's speculative. Just before we go, there's an interesting story. I mean, it's a trial, that's ongoing. It says, I used part of Nemasa fund to build hotel. That's Callistus Obi. That's stories on page 9 in greater detail. And also on page 9, there's an obituary story there. Biafra warlord Joe Atuzia dies at 90. Yeah. All right, so Bayo, that's the much that we can take in the Inspire Review segment. Thanks a lot for being with us. Of course, we'll see you again tomorrow. All right, say good morning, Nigeria. Reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get into our discussion segment proper.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom,
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Don't you?
3 Crowns Milk is low in cholesterol and endorsed by the Nigerian Heart Foundation.
3 Crowns Milk. Healthy moms, happy families.
Give me the value pack. Helen!
You do great value shopping.
Absolutely. I'm a champion at getting value.
Then you must have bought the Hapic 200 ml.
Why Hapic when I have
this? Even after applying them 10 times, they won't give a sparkling clean toilet.
Impossible.
Challenge. Detergent and bleach can't give a sparkling clean toilet even after 10 times. But Hapic 200 ml gives a sparkling clean toilet at one go.
Wow.
Hapic 200 ml. Real deal. Now only 200 naira.
They've already done us proud. Nobody will ever imagine that in any Winter Olympics, there'll be Nigerians there. And then for the very first time, I'm really proud of them. And I believe strongly that that's the beginning of new things that's happening into sports.
Here we go, Stevie, let's go!
You are watching the Kwese Free Sports, UHF 32, for the fan.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I knew what Grandma's secret was. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me.
It's Jik, of course, the trusted bleach which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. Jik removes 101 stains. Just Jik it.
Dettol team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold?
No!
They are spread through germs which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash, wash, wash your hands. What you have to do is bath, bath, bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash, wash, wash your hands.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now?
Sure.
This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X.
Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that
Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
All right, you're welcome back from that short break. As we indicated, we have 2 topics that are related that we are taking on this morning. DAPCHI, 1 week later, and of course also countering extremism and terrorism. Our correspondent Timothy Yusuf has put together this background to set the stage for our first topic that we are taking on this morning.
The whereabouts of about 110 girls missing after a terror group suspected to be Boko Haram attacked the Government Girls Science and Technical College DAPCHI in Yobe State. 1 week ago is a sharp reminder of the Boko Haram's kidnapping of 276 girls from a boarding school in Chibok, Borno State in 2014. The DAPCHI kidnapping is therefore the second largest abduction since the insurgents' activities began in the northeast Nigeria. Yobe State is not experiencing school attacks for the first time, as there was an attack on a science secondary school in Buniyadi, where at least 29 male students were killed. The DAPCHI attack, which has again brought anguish to many families, is receiving urgent government attention, with President Muhammadu Buhari declaring it as a national disaster. While Boko Haram is believed to have left more than 20,000 people dead since 2009, it's already a week after the Dapchi school girls' abduction, but the 110 girls not accounted for as confirmed by the federal government are nowhere to be found for now. What are the ongoing efforts towards rescuing the girls? How are the girls' parents managing the traumatic experience? And how responsive are the security agencies? Answers shortly on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. It's the Dapchi attack just 1 week after. That's our first focus this morning. And we have with us in the studio Kabiru Adamu, a security risk management expert. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Rhoda. Good morning.
We also have joining us from our Lagos Network Center, Colonel Ola Mojoyegba. He is a retired mate and he's a security consultant. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for being with us on the program this morning. We do hope that we're able to establish some links with our correspondent who is in Yobe State. If we do get the links cleared up, then of course then we'll have him join the conversation, giving us the latest situational reports from Dapchi. Well, in the meantime, we already have, as Rhoda has already introduced, Kabiru Adamu. Kabiru Adamu, of course, you were with us last week when we first took on this subject. Here we are now, 8 days later, with a wide variety of reports on the incident. What is your take on what is playing out?
A few open issues that I would describe as unfortunate. The most obvious one that I'm sure would be the national discourse today with the disharmony between the top security agencies in Yobe. Yesterday we had the army releasing a statement countering what the governor mentioned, and then immediately after that the police countered what the army said. Boko Haram, if at all they were the ones behind the abduction, will be very happy with this unfortunate development because we have our principal security agencies arguing among themselves. The president, yesterday when he hosted the released university lecturers and the women, indicated that it may have been Boko Haram that abducted those girls. I think that's the first time we're hearing a direction from government indicating who may have been behind the abduction. So perhaps Mr. President, based on the intelligence available to him, has confirmed that this is the group that abducted the girls, even though when the DGSSS was making his own statement, he said they had to negotiate with two groups. So that tells us that perhaps in this instance, two groups may have been involved. Another missing element, which worries me a lot, is the fact that the parents of these girls, we know that there are 110 girls, going by what the government has said, don't seem to be receiving any psychosocial support to help them through the trauma period they are getting. Even as at yesterday, based on discussions that I've had with people in Dapchi, that's sort of what seems to be the indication. Having said that, the government has taken some bold steps, including the Nigerian Air Force. The surveillance component of that has increased. Some number of security forces have been deployed to Dapchi. So there is a bit of effort by the government to reassure, especially Yobe residents, that their security is of concern to them. But other than that, I think the disharmony, especially between the security forces, seem to be the paramount issue at the moment.
All right, Kabiru Adamu, thank you very much. Let's go over now to Colonel Ola Mojoyegba in our Lagos Network studios. Colonel Ola Mojoyegba, let's get your thoughts on what's playing out in the latest Dapchi abduction.
Thank you, Kingsley. Like the gentleman has just said in the Abuja studio, I am embarrassed by some of the developments that are playing out now. One, this kind of situation is not new to Nigeria. We've had it before, and indeed, I'm sure that Kingsley, you remember when we jointly served in the Presidential Fact-Finding Committee, and we discovered some of the things that happened that ought not to have happened. I am sad that the same things are playing out. As the gentleman said, how come that the principal agents of government concerned with this incident appear not to be agreeing? Over 30 years ago, 35 years, I remember that in the training in the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, we were told about the procedures for handing over from one force to the other when you have an internal security situation. It is unimaginable to me that the army commander would have taken the troops out without informing the police commissioner. I really don't know who to believe, but that is, as the gentleman already said, that is very unfortunate. That is not going to comfort the relations of those who have been adopted, and indeed the rest of us who are Nigerians who expect that the government will be in a position to react appropriately. I am glad, though, that in this incident, at least there are a few things that are better than what happened in 2014 to the Chibok girls. You recall that at that time, government said nothing for 19 days. So we thank God that today, the government has spoken, delegations have been sent to the place. But there's something I'm very curious about. Maybe the president made that remark just to show that he's concerned. I would expect that you don't need a presidential directive when something like that happens. Why? There should be standard operational procedures. We are at war, ladies and gentlemen, and nothing has happened that could not have been predicted. Nothing. Oh, Boko Haram has been technically defeated. Some of the senior persons have told Nigerians they've been decimated. All kinds of strange words. Decimated, degraded. I thought at least the people who should know in the Federal Executive Council, the Minister of Interior, you cannot have better training than he has in these matters. He was the Chief of Army Staff. If indeed, as the theater commander said, Boko Haram is under so much fire, it is absolutely predictable that they were going to do the kind of thing they've done in Dapchi. I am also very sad about the information management with relation to the whole crisis. I am surprised and disappointed that we do not appear to know that information management with regards to the management of the crisis is just as important as the deployment of security forces. What do I mean by that? As I speak today, I am not aware that Nigerians have been convinced, particularly the group that are likely to be recruited, that Boko Haram is indeed haram. In other words, the idea is still out there. And you have a lot of idle, unemployed people ready to join in. Two, how come that each time something like this happens, the governor makes one statement, then he comes back to say, oh no, that is not true. Then he says something that he has no authority to say, namely that the commander should deploy troops. I'm shocked that the governor didn't know that he has no such authority, and no commander will take instructions. In any case, when he said that they should deploy more soldiers, is he aware how many soldiers are available to the commander? I have said it repeatedly. It is impossible to fight this war to a successful conclusion with the present troops level that we have. You cannot fight a war with peacetime strength. It is not possible. The area of operation is just so big. It's a huge theater, bigger than many countries in Europe. And the number of troops that you have are simply inadequate. Now, that gives Boko Haram a lot of leeway to operate as they have, because you can go for hundreds of kilometers, as in this case, without finding any soldier, any policeman, or any other of the security agencies. Well, I think we have done well comparatively, but we still have not done well enough. And still with information management, why is it that everybody wants to make a statement? Oh, Air Force, oh, we've gone around, we can't find anybody. What kind of talk is that? You have just started. Did you expect to find the girls and the Boko Haram elements after a few sorties? The answer is no. I think we need more control over the system, management of information, the kind of things that security men and government agents are saying to the public. I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry when a minister was quoted to have said, oh, you know, we have the Safe Schools Initiative, and as soon as the budget is released, we will take action. What kind of thing is this? We had one in 2014. 2018, you are waiting for the budget so that you can have money to implement the Safe Schools Initiative, which in my view is even something very ridiculous. How many schools do you have that you need to protect? How many troops do you have to deploy? I think it's about time that people should think before they talk. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you don't have to make a statement to the press if you don't know what you're talking about. I think it would be helpful for those who do not have the facts, who are not sure what is going on, to simply keep quiet and stop mucking up the atmosphere as the nation tries to handle this very tragic development.
All right, thank you very much, Colonel Majoyegbe, retired. A lot of issues that you have raised now, and in the course of discussion, we'll try as much as we can to break them down and have you speak extensively to them. But now let's see if we can join our correspondent via Skype, and that's Hussaini Mohammed. Hussaini is our correspondent in Damaturu, Yobe, and he visited Dapchi just yesterday. Hussaini, good morning. It's good to have you join us on the program this morning. First of all, I'd like to know from you, it's been 1 week now after this ugly incident happened. Is the picture clearer now of what has happened, and what was the mood like in Dapchi yesterday when you visited?
Actually, yesterday I went to Dapchi where the unfortunate incident happened, and I was able to meet with the chairman of the Association of Parents whose children were abducted. And from the mood of the people, particularly the parents, I think their mood is they are still in pain because the whereabouts of their children is still unknown, and the anxiety in the town is still heightened because people of the community, particularly the town, have lost almost 50 school children from the incident, and which is about 50% of the number which are still missing, and especially the parents of those who are in the SS1. I think the pain is very, very much because they are still in agony.
Well, Hussaini, tell us something more about Dapchi itself. How big a town or city is it in Yobe compared, for instance, to Damaturu or Potiskum?
Dapchi is the headquarters of Busari local government. It's about 100 kilometers away from the state capital, and I think they have a population of about 100,000 people, and the town is situated very strategically in the central part of the state, and the school is located just less than a kilometer to the police station of the local government, and I think there is less security presence in the town because when you realize the situation, the number of the population there, you realize that the number of the security men, particularly police officers, are less when you compare them with the population of the town. And even though the school is a little bit close to the station, what I think the situation is very pathetic.
I'm wondering, Hussaini, when you visited the town, what was the situation at the police station, which you say is close to the school? Was the police station functioning? And what do you know about the state of the police station on the day of the attack 8 days ago?
The police station, like I said, is situated very close to the school, and I think they have less police officers because when I went to the Dapchi, I was able to go to the police station, and I saw quite a number of policemen at the gate, and I think the officers there are not up to 20, I think. when you look at the population of Dapchi and you compare them with 20 policemen or even less than that, I think they are not enough to take care of the security situation of the local government.
Well, Hussaini, Kingsley just was trying to ask, I'd like to take that again. Well, what did you gather? Was there any, reaction, or was there any, the day that the incident happened, from what you gathered, did the police in any way, come around to try to salvage the situation on that day?
Please come again, I didn't hear you well.
I said, Kingsley was trying to ask you earlier, on the day of the incident, from what you have gathered from your visit there, did the police respond on that day at all? Was there any response from the police when it was going on or after it had happened?
Actually, from what I gathered from the chairman of the Association of the Parents, before the attack, I think 3 weeks before the attack, from what they told me, the security, the military particularly, were withdrew from the local government. They handed over the security issue to the policemen in the town. And according to what they said, the police officers were briefed about the movement of the insurgents. But according to what they said, the police officers were actually confirmed to them that they are on ground to take care of anything in case of any unfortunate incident. But when the insurgents stormed the town, unfortunately, all the police officers deserted the town and they were left without a single security officer, according to the chairman of the Parents Association of the Abducted School Children.
Hussaini, we are still with you because at least right now we have some good Skype connection. But tell us something. There have been all kinds of reports as to what happened on the day of the attack. Some accounts are claiming that the insurgents probably didn't quite understand the geography of the location and perhaps asked for directions. And so when they're moving around in a zigzag formation before they located the school, what did you gather?
Yes, it is true, because when I went to Dapchi, I was able to discuss with quite a number of residents of the town. And, Dapchi is very close to Gumsa, which is about 20 kilometers away from Dapchi town. So when the insurgents came, they made a stopover at Gumsa to ask for somebody who would direct them to Dapchi town. So they took that person who actually directed them to Dapchi. In fact, when they came inside Dapchi town, they were not able to locate where the school is, so they had to call another person who they used, who directed them to the school. And it is true that the insurgents are not conversant with the terrain, because the route which they followed is somehow very, very tight. They actually came in a long way of the chairman of the Parents Association, and from what he told me, they used somebody from the town who I think is still inside the town, and who subsequently directed them to the school and where they perpetrated the act.
Well, Hussaini, we also learned that the youths of Dapchi town also tried to salvage the situation. How true is that?
You said?
We learned that some of the youths in that community, just you said earlier that from what you learned, it's like the police deserted, the town on that day. But then we learned that some of the youths in that community tried to salvage the situation.
Some of the community, the last statement you said?
Youths in the town, they're trying to salvage the situation.
Just wondering, Hussaini, what Rhoda is indicating is that there were reports that some of the young men in Dapchi town engaged in hot pursuit of the insurgents while they were fleeing with the abducted schoolgirls. Is that true?
Yes, it is true, because the chairman told me actually that the insurgents came with an open gun, which probably they use in conveying the students. And when they took the students, they made a stopover at one village very close to the Dapchi town. And at that point, the people of that community, which is very close to the Dapchi town, had the crying of the children, of the school children. And the commander of the attackers directed for for tying their legs so that they will not run away, and he asked them to keep quiet because they are moving into a difficult terrain, and that was how they took they convey the children according to the chairman of the parents.
All right, Hussein, just before we step you down and then bring in our two analysts to discuss aspects of what you have raised, the guest with us here, Kabir Adamu, had made a point in his opening statement to the effect that there was concern that there was probably no counseling of the traumatized parents and guardians and relatives of the abducted schoolgirls. What do you know at this time about what's going on in terms of communicating much more effectively with the affected parents and others? Is there some communal process going on in terms of, how to comfort, console one each other, or each and one another in this period of crisis?
Are you talking about business or what?
I'm talking about counseling. Now, Kabiru Adamu, who is with us here in the studio, is one of our guests, expressed concern that perhaps at this moment where the parents and guardians of the abducted schoolgirls are feeling traumatized, there is probably no counseling going on to help them calm down and reassure them as to what government is doing. What do you know about this?
Actually, as I'm speaking with you, there is no any support given by either government, security agencies, or any non-governmental organization. Because I realized that from what I gathered from the parents, up to today, they even complained that the government has sidelined them in all the scheme of activities. They were not consulted in everything, and nobody has ever contacted them to give them any assistance, and either counseling or anything. They are left with their trauma.
All right, Hussein, thank you very much. We'll step you down in the meantime, but you stay with us still, because of course we are sure that there will be other matters that will arise from the contributions of our two guests. Rhoda.
All right, thank you very much, Hussein, our correspondent there from Yobe State. Now, let's talk to Kabiru. Kabiru, you listened to some of the comments that he's made, and of course, I know that you're very conversant with Dapchi. What's your take on some of the issues that he's raised?
Two major things that have come out. Failure of intelligence and then failure of communication. If a journalist can go to Dapchi and come out with this gold mine, if I'm an intelligence analyst, what I'm hearing from your correspondent is a gold mine. So I'm just wondering how come out of the 5 or more intelligence organizations that we have in Nigeria, we are not getting that kind of result. I don't know how many days he spent in Dapchi that he was able to get this gold mine. So clearly there is a failure of intelligence. Second point, communication. In the course of his conversation, he has mentioned several times that if there was adequate communication between the residents and the security forces, add that to the ability of the security forces, especially the military, to have light force deployment, then we won't be where we are today. This incident, the attack happened around 6:30 p.m. Now, if someone somewhere in that community had picked his phone and called for reinforcement from the military, or even if it's the police, let's take it as we keep on giving the police the excuse that they are not well armed, so they can't confront Boko Haram. For me, that's not acceptable. They are the police, they have to take responsibility. Now, if even when they ran away, they had taken the phone and called the military, and there was light force deployment that would allow the military deploy in minutes to that location, we won't be in the situation where we are. So a combination of those two factors, communication and then failure of intelligence, have led us to where we are. And thankfully, your correspondent has adequately captured that. He has corroborated my point regarding the absence of psychosocial support for the parents. Tie all of this together. I'll repeat what I said when you invited me here a week ago. A crisis management center should have been established by the Nigerian government. Now, a crisis management center would have been able to take care of all of these 3 points that we mentioned. 8 days after this incident, the fact that there is no crisis management center, honestly, is not acceptable.
Are you suggesting, for instance, that the government team that has made 2 visits to Yobe doesn't satisfy the requirements of a crisis management center?
No, it doesn't. A crisis management center is there to serve several purposes, one of which is to pool efforts from all the agencies of government that are involved. What we are seeing right now is lack of coordination between the government agencies, and the Crisis Management Center would have taken care of that. What it would do, among other things, is to establish a communication channel. And with who? Communication channels with Nigerians, communication channel with the parents, communication channel with everyone who is a stakeholder. Right now, we do not have that. We're in a very embarrassing situation.
All right, Kabir Adamu, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Colonel Olamajo Egbe in our Lagos Network studios. Colonel Majo Egbe, again, let's have your thoughts on all of this. The attackers obviously seemed to have no compass to Dapchi Secondary School. And, you know, what does that tell us about who the attackers likely were, what their motives were, and if they might have been frustrated?
First, I'd like to say that I find that intriguing that the criminals, whoever they are, whether they are ISIS in West Africa, the Boko Haram, or some other group, will target a location and appear not to be aware of the road to that location. I find that very intriguing. It may be true, may never be true, but you know, you never know. As someone said, very popular, namely that in war, the first casualty is the truth. We don't know, but I find that very interesting. If it is indeed Boko Haram, that must lend credence to some of the claims by General Rogers, the theater commander, and some of the other people on the ground that indeed Boko Haram is in Dizari. But in spite of that, they were successful anyway. What I find very sad in all of this is this. How come that when something happens, we take a number of steps, as soon as the heat is down, we throw that apart and wait. When a similar thing happens, you try to reinvent the wheel. As I said earlier, I was in the thick of the Presidential Fact-Finding Committee. I know the facts that were obtained. I know the comments that some senior government officials made when the report was submitted. I can recall very clearly some of the things that President Jonathan said when we met with him. I am not surprised that nobody has seen that report, because some of the senior officials to whom the report was sent for their comments said things that are, in my view, treasonable. Why? One of them said, oh, isn't this committee set up by government? How come that this report is indicting government? And I recall that the indefatigable Brigadier General Ibrahim Sabo, a former DMI who led the team, now asks the question, wasn't the committee set up to find out facts? Were we supposed to manufacture things that will please the government because the government set it up? So what am I saying? If anybody were to come out with that report today, you will find that it said everything that needed to be said about the Chibok girls, what went wrong, and what we ought to do. In which case, by now, they ought to have a standard operational procedure. What do I mean by that? You don't have to be a security officer to know the targets. We have IDP camps. We have training institutions, particularly the one that are set aside for girls. The commander has troops. He has done the state analysis. And there should be standard procedures such that if anybody is kidnapped anywhere, if an IDP camp is attacked, if a school is attacked, the troops already assigned to that assignment will react without waiting for a governor who does not appear to know what he's talking about, or for the president to send people in Babariga to go to the place in 2 days. Kingsley, I'm not surprised you asked a very wonderful question. All these ministers going in flowing gowns, as your guest said, do not represent, in fact, they don't speak to the Crisis Management Center. No. That ought to have been part of it. Now, the commander of Operation Lafi Adoli. Well, let me put it this way. I want to assume that they have done all of this, namely that the troops have been assigned to areas in which attacks are expected, the procedures for the establishment of a crisis management center, all of that ought to be in the books. Because you don't need more than 10 years in the Nigerian army as an officer who is well-trained to be able to do all of this. And we're talking about major generals and one-star generals, and things appear not to be working. Can the federal government please ask for the report on the Chibok girls? So what happened at that time? What did the committee say? How come that 4 years down the line, we have a similar situation and we are trying to reinvent the wheel? I think all of this is very, very sad indeed. I want to salute your guest in the studio. I think he's a fit and proper person to be referred to as a security expert, much against the kind of characters we have seen making public statements in some radio stations and saying things they don't know anything about in the newspapers. So I think it would be a good place to say, let's have the Chibok reports. Let's see what the committee said. What do we have to have learned as against a minister saying, as I said, was it yesterday or the day before, that he's waiting for a budget approval so they can put Safe Schools initiative in place in 2018. I mean, this beats my imagination. In any case, the people talking about this Safe Schools initiative, have they done any homework? Talk is cheap. If you, as the governor said, send troops, send everybody there, where are the troops we are going to send? And don't forget that it has been admitted now that the troops who are in that position, who withdrew, reacted to another attack. I mean, there are elementary procedures in all of this in the books. You don't leave your position as a military commander without signing a document which the police, your police counterpart will countersign. Or is anybody trying to tell me that all of that ended in the Command and Staff College? And I don't believe so. I think we have extremely well-trained members of the armed forces and the security agencies. And what we would like to see is evidence of that training and competence and professionalism, and not having this happen again. Every IDP camp is a target. Every school is a target. So what do? Your job is made this, you know where they're likely to go. Particularly now that I believe, or I hope, that Boko Haram is in Desari. They are going to be showing up in all sorts of places. And I think that we should be ready for them, such that even before the president makes a statement, even before a Babariga-wearing minister begins to roam around, the troops have reacted according to what's in the book. That's my position on the matter.
All right, thank you very much, Colonel Ola Majayegbe, retired. Thank you for your thoughts there. But first of all, let's take the tweets that we have via Twitter handle at NTAGMN. And you can continue to be a part of this conversation by tweeting at us at our Twitter handle. The first message we have is from Festus Akimboyewak. It says the kidnapping of the 110 Dapchi girls from their school has brought painful memories. Sadly, many parents in the region will now have to choose between sending their children to school and keeping them at home. The government must ensure that the girls are brought back quickly and safely. Engineer Abdullahi has this tweet: the military and all security agencies should work more on intelligence gathering and not giving more emphasis on some roadblocks. This is an unfortunate situation as it comes after claims of the defeat of Boko Haram. And this one is from Nelson Ekujimi. He says the intervention of retired colonel is very apt and educative. Hope those in charge are watching and taking notes. It's indisputably embarrassing for government agencies to be speaking at cross purposes. And Sonny Michael Amakoji tweets, while our military are on their toes to rescue the Dapchi students, it is glaring that we are yet to learn our lesson from the Chibok schoolgirls. It's high time we kept our military strategy from the media and fought these miscreants headlong. And finally, Eddie Nathaniel says, from what we experienced before now, I thought all our schools in the Northeast would be properly secured. Where were our security men before the men came in and gathered the students before taking them away? I think there is more to our security that as Nigerians we need to know. Those are the tweets. We have another set of tweets, by the way. Just check your records. We have another set of tweets. This one coming from Law Alpha C. It's an established fact that the country is under policed, as it were. So we should try
state police to argument. Chris Simon has another one. He says the federal government should add FARC staff to rescue these girls before it's too late. It happened like this in April 2014 with Chibok girls. Even up to now, those girls are still in some of those girls are still in Boko Haram captivity.
All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll of course conclude this first part of our discussion, and of course we're looking at curbing violent extremism also too as a second part of our discussion when we come back. So continue to stay with us.
Mom Powerful.
I encourage my kids to learn new things, and if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's 1 capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's 1 capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's 1 capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's 1 capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Naija mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
Use Dettol Skin Jelly, which protects against germs for a healthy, smooth skin every day.
NTA Television College, Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is organizing a 2-week course in broadcast media management techniques. The course will be facilitated by iconic media managers and administrators such as Dr. Tony O. Iradia, former DG, NTA. Date, 5th to 16th March 2018. Course fee, 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Also, a 4-week course in principles and practice of marketing. We hold from 19th March to 13th April 2018. Course fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Venue for both courses will be the NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Both courses are specially designed to hone the skills of participants in the dynamic broadcast media space. The broadcast media management technique course targets participants from grade level 10 to 15 and shall deal with critical management functions that affect job performance. Principles and practice of marketing course has been packaged to help participants acquire relevant knowledge and skills in all aspects of digital marketing, public relations, market research, strategies, and management. For further inquiries, contact 0806 908 9807, 0703 660 7155, or email ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capful for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
All right, welcome back. If you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, we just focused on the Dapchi attack just 1 week after. We've had guests in the studio here speaking extensively to the way forward and what needs to be done. But right now, we're also now looking at our second item for discussion, partly related, and that's the issue of violent extremism. What can be done about it? And so we have a couple of guests who have joined us in this discussion. We still have our previous guest, Kabiru Adamu, is still here with us. We still have Konet Ola Major Igbe, retired. But now would want to introduce the other guest that we have joining us on this discussion. We have joining us on this discussion, that's Reverend Father Atakindo. It's from the Cooker Center. Good morning, and thank you for joining us in this discussion.
Yeah.
All right, and then we also have with us here in the studios now Dr. Isaac Armstrong. Dr. Isaac Armstrong is the regional of the Regional Security Division of the ECOWAS Commission. Dr. Armstrong, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, and as Rhoda indicated, we still have in Lagos, Koneola Majo Igbe and Kabir Adamu. Well, gentlemen, you just joined us. I'm sure you've had the benefit of listening to the comments of our guests on the latest incident of abduction by terrorists. But in this case, what we are talking about now has to do with how to effectively counter terrorism and violent extremism. Let's bring in first Father Atta Bakindo. Father Atta Bakindo, what are your thoughts?
First of all, there are two aspects, to countering violent extremism. Of course, that is the hard approach, which is the targeted military offensive that we have seen, where Nigerian government particularly has seen it as the best option rather than the last resort. And we also have the soft approach, And I think that under Jonathan's administration, there were three components that were developed on countering violent extremism. There was the counter-radicalization, which was targeted at local communities, that before even people are radicalized, how do you attend to their socio-economic needs? And of course, there are de-radicalization, which is ongoing in prisons funded by the European Union and Operation Safe Corridor. This is particularly targeted at people who are already radicalized. How do you change their attitude, from violence to non-violence? And the other aspect is, of course, what we call strategic communication. I was listening to one of your guests, Kabiru Adam, who was speaking about that lack of, communication that we see. But beyond this strategic point he made, it's also about the communications in terms of countering the violent narratives of Boko Haram. How is it that Boko Haram is able to exploit this ideology in order to recruit people? Who are the key religious scholars that can actually come on board and domesticate this issue and assist the Nigerian government, in countering violent extremism in terms of ideology? And my argument has always been that you can kill every single member of Boko Haram, but the whole of northern Nigeria is littered with all sorts of ideologies, and we need to assist the Nigerian government to counter that. Because Boko Haram started very gently as a non-violent group, spreading all kinds of message, and politicians, officials look the other way. And today we have ended up what Boko Haram has become. So the fact is not just about physically killing them. It is about this ideology that litters every single village in northern Nigeria. How do you counter that? And I think that is the key.
All right, thank you very much, Father Atta. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in now Dr. Armstrong. Dr. Armstrong?
Yes, thank you very much. Taking it from where Father talked about the ideology, people have ideologies based on what they are cultured by. People are cultured by the words they hear. They are cultured by religion. They are cultured by their environment. They are cultured by education. So it's not just a militarized approach, like he said. We have to look at the soft approach, and I prefer to call it preventing violent extremism. What do we teach in our schools? What are the family values? Who are the mentors? Who are the role models of our youths? And then there are vulnerabilities which the society creates. Issues of governance, for instance. Youth unemployment, poverty, sense of inequality, gender issues, and all of this. These are things we need to address, because it matters what we hear in our churches, what we hear in the mosque, religious circles, traditional leaders, the communities. What are we doing about it? The educational system. There should be a structure to educate people on the needs of not being violent. You may have a just cause, but there's a prescribed order. Rule of law. Issues like this. So looking at it in totality, we take things from the grassroots level. Family values, like I said. Are the mothers and the fathers, are they interested in the behavioral changes of their children? Radicalization of extremism doesn't happen overnight. It's over time. We observe that little kid coming late at night, or what he says, what he speaks about most times. Get into the internet. What is he browsing? People are radicalized online today. We must not also forget that fact. It's very key. People are radicalized online. They don't even need to go to schools. So the social media plays a key role. The family values, same thing. So over time, when people get radicalized, there's a process. So we must monitor these changes as they come. and address them at all levels. This is my take on this. Going, with the hard approach is not really the solution. It's an ideology. Like he said, you could kill everybody, but you can't kill someone's spirit or someone's mind on something once it's having the right environment to be expressed.
All right, Dr. Isaac Armstrong, thank you very much. Let's get the views of Kabiru. Kabiru, the phenomenon of violent extremism, of course, is something that seemed to be taking lots of lives daily, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world. The question that comes to mind, and that's what they've been addressing, which I'd like to also speak to, is what is responsible for these ideologies?
Several factors. Recently, the Office of the National Security Advisor launched what it called Policy Framework and National Action Plan on Preventing and Countering Violent Extremism, a very laudable document. I went through it, and as usual in Nigeria, you see documents, and you are amazed at the level of intellect, the effort that was put through in launching that document. But the question I would probably ask is, how many of us have actually seen that document? The claim in that document is that it's a government as well as people effort, which suggests that people were carried along in developing that document. So in that document, they suggested a couple of factors which my co-discussants have mentioned, the push and the pull factors. On the one hand, you have economic deprivation, you have poverty, you have all the various elements that we have within our societies identified. And then on the other hand, you have the activities of some clerics, quote and unquote, as well as politicians that may be encouraging this aspect of violent extremism. So we know what the causes are. And just to take us a bit back, this is not a Nigeria-specific solution to extremism. It's actually recommended by the UN. And like Father Atta mentioned at the beginning, it started not with this government, it started prior to the Buhari administration. So it's not new, but the challenge, two major challenges. The emphasis on the military component as against the soft approach, and then unfortunately we seem to have some personality issues creeping in with regards to the implementation of the various components of it. So to answer specifically to your question, there are push and pull factors that are unfortunately encouraging violent extremism.
All right, thank you very much, Kabiru Adamu, a security expert who's joined us on our discussion this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll go now to our guest who's in Lagos, Colonel Ola Majoyegbe. I'm sure you've been listening to the submissions that are being made here by all of the guests that we have here in the studio, and they're already speaking to why we are seeing an increase in the issue of violent extremism. But then I want to ask you, we're seeing now that all over the world there are programs that are being, created, especially locally for the needs of nations in terms of countering violent extremism. Does Nigeria have such program?
Well, like my co-discussant has already said, we have all of these things expertly put down in documents, like the document that the National Security Advisor launched. But what amazes me is that in spite of all of that, you cannot see any of this playing out. Now, I do not have access to the document or the law that established the National Orientation Agency. But I would have thought that maybe this is the kind of thing that the agency should be doing. As I said, I do not know what responsibilities they've been given. But I see them coming out now and again, oh, election is coming. And then after that, they say one or two things, and then we hear nothing else. If it is a national orientation agency, then it should be doing some orientation of the people. What the other discussants have said today are absolutely unimpeachable. We can go on and on. I guarantee you that if I were told, write a book, you have 3 months on this matter, it will be a sellout. So we know the things that we ought to be doing. If you do not attempt, so this push and pull. If you do not attempt to insulate the youths that are coming up from some of these things, you are going to be shooting people forever. It was J.F. Kennedy, I believe, that said, a man may die, nations may rise and fall, but ideas do not die. As the father said, shoot every Boko Haram element today. So long as there are people who believe in that doctrine or whatever it is, so long as there are people whose circumstances of life have triggered into taking, people don't just become violent, but a man, he has no education, there's no program for him by government, he has nowhere to stay, he's just a layabout. Those guys will be available to participate in violent extremism. Because there is no hope. The man is not looking up to anything. He's not going to lose anything. In any case, he has no house. He has no personal things. I mean, but I want to seize the opportunity to say something that has always bothered me, which I think is germane. When we spoke to the retired chief of army staff, I speak about the courageous and professional General Minima. One of the things he told us is, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to deploy my troops in penny packets. And for those of us in the military, we understood him completely. Saying that I will not put 4 or 5 soldiers at a road junction somewhere. Saying that they are protecting the place and all of that. Because Boko Haram will just come and wipe them out. So we can't be everywhere where we should be. That translates to something, in my view, that is very simple. And I want to go back to the point that I make. You do not fight a war with peacetime strength. Now, there are thousands of discharged and retired military personnel, many of whom I encounter in the line of duty. When the terms and conditions were amended, and you could discharge from the armed forces, that is under General Babangida, just after 10 years, a lot of people left the service. Many of them are still in their early 30s. Now, if you can have civilian JTF, and you can see that you need a lot of men to get this job done, why can't you have a veteran JTF? They require very little training, so that they can come and give support in things like rear area protection. What do I mean? You stay, you are veterans. You know, you've been in Lebanon, you've been everywhere. Hold these barracks. The people who are now on active duty are going to carry out the attack. Then you have more people to deploy. What is the problem? If it's got to, I used to think that the civilian JTF were just a couple of people running around making their content, until I got to Maiduguri during that investigation aforementioned, and I found that they are properly organized and paid by government. And let me say something. One of the things that amazed me, we found that Boko Haram elements are more afraid of the civilian JTF. What do I mean by that? They discovered that maybe by native keenness of intellect, or the fact that they live in the same environment, they can tell Boko Haram elements apart much more easily than the military people can do. The problems which have been identified, solve them. Give the guys more people to fight. And there are a lot of people roaming around now with inadequate pension. They are looking for some money on the side, and many of them are frustrated that a bunch of gunmen are trying to make nonsense of the armed forces in which they spent most of their youth. So I agree, the soft approach is excellent. In fact, it is the best, because then you cut the supply of entrants. But unless you show the bad guys that they will be dealt with, somebody said, I'm not an expert in that, but he said something to the effect that it is not the severity of punishment, but the certainty of punishment that deters the criminal. If they know they can go to Dapchi and take 110 girls, they will do it again. But if they encountered severe firepower and lost most of their men, they probably would think twice. But let me say one other thing quickly. I am so embarrassed by the kind of attitude that we see in the media of NGOs and all of that. What do I mean? People come to the center stage before cameras. We want President Buhari to tell us what he is doing. What about operational security? No, this is the democracy. He must tell us. We want to know what he is doing now. Look at the mess the former administration made when we had a loose-talking chief of defense staff. Oh, we have met Boko Haram, the girls are coming tomorrow. Tomorrow, no girls show up. In other words, the people should give the government a break. Demand to be informed, but do not insist that government must tell you what they are going to do. Because Boko Haram is always watching all these mediums. In fact, they are in the social media more than the government. They have experts. You know, they do their film clips and make all sorts of things. So if you pressurize the president into taking precipitate decisions, you are going to endanger the operation. And I just thank God that we have the kind of president that we have, who is unlikely to be pressurized by anybody who does not know what he's talking about. Let the NGOs come and make advocacy. That is why they get grants from wherever. But do not let them become a problem to the government. If the negotiation that got the lecturers and those who have just been released now were in the media, it would have failed. People would have been saying all sorts of things. And the goons would have known that, okay, this is what government is saying. But I salute the Director General of SSS in the way the thing was handled, so that nobody knew anything was going on until suddenly everybody was released. Final point. Now, those who talk about hot pursuit and rapid reaction and things should take note of this very important point. When people are kidnapped or captured or abducted, troops should not be made to think that the thing to do is to go after those who have captured them and begin to open fire. Don't forget that, as the president said, we want to rescue them alive. It is easy to kill a couple of gunmen with their victims, but that is not what we want. And as I said, I guarantee you that the generals running the operation today, A, know what to do. B, they can tell you what is going to happen next. So, people making statements about whether Boko Haram is defeated or whether they have been decimated, all kinds of strange words. I don't know why people are so careful when they speak in public. They should.
All right, Colonel Olamajo Igbe, well, that's, you were in full flow there, but we'd like to appreciate you for being with us. You joined us from our Lagos Network Center. We have 3 guests still with us here in the Abuja studios to continue the conversation on countering terrorism and violent extremism. Colonel Olamajo Igbe, thanks a lot for being on the program this morning. All right, now we've been joined again by, now by another guest in the Abuja studios. Is Dr. Mustapha Bintube. He's an expert on counterterrorism and insurgency with specific focus on Boko Haram. Dr. Bintube, you've listened, of course, to the other guests talk about DAPCHI and also talk about the key ingredients in violent extremism and how to launch preventive or countermeasures to all of this. Let's get your thoughts very quickly.
Thank you very much for bringing me up. Let me start by saying that what happened in DAPCHI last week is unfortunate and uncalled for. And I also feel for the parents, you know, as father of 2, I know how much my wife and I are concerned about our children and their welfare. Having said that, the entire thing is a problem now. Not only a problem, but a social problem. Problem that affects a significant number of people in a way undesirable, about which something is felt to be done through collective social action or social effort. Moreover, the problems and challenges associated with violent extremism and terrorism should be considered both as a national security priority and, of course, threat to regional and the global peace and security. Boko Haram has led to the death of tens of thousands and, of course, displaced a huge population. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, you know, they provided statistics of the displaced people as a result of insurgency and terrorism in the Northeast, stating that about 9.6 million people, you know, were actually displaced in the Northeast. About 4.5 million are in the host communities, you know, housed by their relations and Good Samaritan. 3.6 or so are in the IDPs, and 2 million population are returnees. Looking at this...
Dr. Bintube, I'd
yes.
like to just kind of bring you back to the scope of our discussion
yes.
this morning. And a lot of the other guests have spoken to the reason why we have, you know, violent extremism on the rise, you know, all over the world. But then I'd like you to speak specifically now to what is it that we can do in terms of solving the issue of violent extremism? How can we counter it in change the narrative, you know, in doing it in a soft way?
Yes, countering terrorism and violent extremism largely depends on three components. The military components, that is the military action, diplomacy, and then development. Under each of these components, we have critical issues to look at. These are issues that are historically located, politically potent, economically relevant, and of course socially significant. Looking at the entire thing from the historical dimension, we need to understand their evolution, the antecedents of their evolution, structural foundation, and of course, dimensions, you know. The military is doing very well, for instance, in the Northeast, in the fight against Boko Haram insurgency, but they still need to be supported very well. They need to get, you know, logistics, you know, at the right time, you know, to do the right operations. And on the development side, is not, we are looking at creating developmental activities within that region, you know, to bring together people. It's a situation in which, you know, everybody will come with a sense of patriotism and the nation building in order to utilize both human and the natural resources for the citizen better standard of living. And we need to also make all the institutions functional to dispense much needed social services.
All right, Dr. Mustafa
yes.
Bintube, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Father Atta Bakindo. Father Atta Bakindo, one of the causative factors we hear with regard to violent extremism, and as you indicated, virtually in every part of the North, you have the seeds of the ideology already sown. And people talk about incidents of poverty, incidents of deprivation. But it isn't as if Nigeria was always a first world nation, an advanced country, and then suddenly we have poverty all over the place, and then you have the seeds of extremism germinating. When the conditions of life, of living, were not so rosy in the past, we didn't have this extremism. Why are we having it now? And therefore, what can be done to squelch it or otherwise, you know, attenuate its growth?
I think, let me make this point. For lots of Nigerians, the whole of the Northeast is unknown to so many people. It's one of the most marginalized. I come from southern Adamawa State, a little border town between Nigeria and Cameroon. It's called Sugu. I need just 1 hour, 30 minutes to get into Cameroon, but I need 15 hours by car, including the bad road, to come to Abuja. Now, most of the business activities is at this border area. No government presence on governed territories. People literally have no jobs. They are completely the forgotten of the earth. So they have to find a sense of identity and belonging somewhere. And when you have groups like Boko Haram, that is precisely what they can offer. And I think that just to go back to the point, in terms of what can be done to assist the Nigerian government counter this, it's not as if nothing is happening. Of course, there's something happening. And one of the examples I will give is what is happening with the European Union funded de-radicalization program happening in the prisons. So, for example, this is targeted at Boko Haram members who are either sentenced, who are either convicted, who are either awaiting trial. So they are trained by religious scholars. They are trained on vocational training. They are given education. In fact, there are reports that some are even writing their work from prisons. And then you have the Operation Safe Corridor happening in Gombe. It is meant for those who are willingly surrendered. And this is, I think, done by the military in a situation where lots of the Boko Haram guys who are captured, they undergo the process of classification. So there's this risk analysis where the military will decide who are those that are low risk and are willing to surrender. They are now sent to Operation Safe Corridor. But the biggest problem we have and the challenge is that there's absolutely no community engagement, no community consultation. Of all the decisions that have been taken since 2009 with the violent uprising of Boko Haram, from the state of emergency to all these political negotiations to the military, attacks, including now the de-radicalization, rehabilitation, and reintegration program, communities are not consulted. Their views are not sought. There is no process of community engagement. So eventually, when you want to reintegrate Boko Haram members, you are going to have problems with the communities. And the reason is simply because memories are fresh. People are still angry. Reconciliation has not taken place. So how do you suddenly de-radicalize and reintegrate Boko Haram members? And then number two, the government could be accused by ordinary citizens of pampering perpetrators and allowing victims to be dying in the camps. So there's going to be absolutely a multi-agency and a comprehensive framework that takes care of both the perpetrators, but at the same time takes care of the victims. But the perpetrators, I'm not talking about the hardcore, violent, serious Boko Haram members that have committed serious atrocities. These guys should face the law. But there are others who it is because of where they have found themselves. Probably I'm not a Boko Haram member because of opportunity and where I was born. If I was born somewhere in Dikwa, in a forgotten village, I've never been to school, my parents have abandoned me, I could probably have been recruited. Is that my fault? So the question is, what has the Nigerian government and a country like Nigeria contributed to making these people become what they have become? And what can the country do to also get them out of extremism and violence? And I think that we can do a lot in that aspect.
All right, Father Atta, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Dr. Isaac Armstrong. Dr. Isaac Armstrong, from the ECOWAS perspective, part of what Father Atta is talking about here, some would say it relates to winning hearts and minds. How much of that can we possibly deploy on a cooperative basis across, the West African sub-region with particular reference to Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. You see, what is happening in Nigeria is not secluded to Nigeria alone. If you've been following the news, you see what's been happening in Mali, and very recently, Burkina Faso. And we're talking about ISIS being defeated more and more, and they're coming down towards the Sahel, which is just across our borders. The northern part of West Africa is the Sahel, and the southern part of North Africa is the Sahel, about 10 million square kilometers stretch. This wide span of land that is unpoliced and very difficult to monitor. So it calls for a comprehensive approach on the issues. We should be asking ourselves these questions. If these ISIS members come in, with what we have in Boko Haram, we have Burkina Faso that's building up, Mali, they all situate themselves at the Sahel. Are we equipped to counter it? The answer is no for now. And we're talking of an ideology. Now, it's not just about the weapons, like we've been saying repeatedly. It's about what you build in the minds of people. So I would say that on a regional perspective, there's a need to come together It's very, very important. And look at all of these socioeconomic issues and factors we are talking about. Now, this is where we find ourselves. But where do we take it from? And I've mentioned some key points like the internet and social media, radicalization processes. We should begin to control what people watch, how people are educated, how they interact across communities, across borders. The role of traditional leaders is key. The role of religious leaders is key. Family values is key. We should start coming with not just community approaches, national approach, regional approach as well to address these issues.
And then talking about educational approach, some people are advocating for anti-extremism curriculum in schools.
Yes, that was what I said when I communicated that earlier. It should be built into the curriculum of our schools. Peace education, we call them peace education, where people don't tend towards getting radicalized and tell them the signs, the indicators of radicalization. Okay. So it's very important. As it is right now, it should be a must in our schools that there should be a peace education for all schools at all levels.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Armstrong. Now let's get the final thoughts of Dr. Mustapha Bintubi. What can government do? What can the people? We were just talking about the government and the military. What can everybody do to ensure that we counter violent extremism and terrorism in Nigeria?
Yes, the thing is that, you know, we focus much on the formal control mechanism, you know, that is looking at the military, the police, the civil defense, the Peace Corps, and other quasi-security outfits. That is not enough to solve this phenomenon. You know, we need to also integrate the informal control mechanism, you know, starting from the chiefs, the emirs, the village heads, the ward heads. As the last speaker rightly pointed out, you know, we need to protect the community and to ensure that we create awareness in the community so that they can now supply information at the right time to help the military operation. You know, the military, in line with their engagement, equal terms of engagement, rules of engagement, you know, they're always on the exterior line. It is the responsibility and duty of the local police to protect the interior and the communities. But unfortunately, Boko Haram succeeded in bringing down significant structures that belongs to the police, and they have also killed or slaughtered the district heads and the ward heads. So in that case, our communities are now vulnerable, and therefore we need to establish mechanisms that will bring up those structures and also enable people to give adequate and you know, vital information at the right time to the military and other security agencies.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Mustapha Bintubi. Thank you for your thoughts there. But now we'll take the tweets that we're getting via Twitter handle. And the first one is from Shakir. It says, orientation of the people will solve violent extremism, and this is caused by laziness of the youth. Having more children one cannot take care of, and over-pampering of children of the rich.
Dele Jack Solomon tweets, it says the need for the establishment of a constitutional body like a Supreme Council for Intertribal and Interreligious Conflicts to function as an arbiter in all interreligious conflicts that are potentially explosive must be revisited. And
Shahid Sani Anka tweets, counter-terrorism should be a cognate of every society. Morality should be first be considered familial, communal, societal before it is national. Let it be remembered that the precautions of any ignored immorality suffered by both doers and the cynical.
Chris Simeon tweets, to counter violent extremism and terrorism, we need to prevent it. Terrorism is a threat to human rights and the rule of law. Komolafe
Samuel tweets, if counter-terrorism and extreme violence will be tackled successfully, then value reorientation of youth must be uttermost priority.
Kian David tweets, now the fight against terrorism and extremism should be the fight of every patriotic Nigerian.
And finally, Nelson Akujame tweets, kudos to the management of NTA for this wonderful presentation this morning. And the quality of guests who spoke on the Dapchi kidnap is awesome because they are very informed and educated us. Thank you, NTA.
All right, thanks a
and
lot
also,
for the
thank you,
there.
Nelson Ekujime, thank you
Yes.
for that message.
Thanks a lot for that tweet. We would like to appreciate our last set of guests who've been with us in the studios. Dr. Mustafa Bintube, it's an expert on counterterrorism and insurgency. Thanks a lot for being around on Good Morning Nigeria.
Yeah,
appreciation also to Dr. Isaac Armstrong, who is of the ECOWAS Commission. There he's in the Regional Security Division. And lastly, but not the least, certainly, that's father and also a doctor, Atta Bakindo, is director of the Kuka Center here in Abuja. Father Atta, thanks a lot for being around.
Thank you.
All right, so that does it for our discussion segment this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We, of course, now going over very quickly to the Weather Center to check out the weather prospects as our concluding segment.
Thank you for staying tuned. We expect to begin the day with relatively stable atmosphere across most parts of the country. Humidity and temperatures are expected to increase over the northern cities. And so sunny conditions are expected over the north, with cloudy to partly cloudy skies over the central states, the southeast inland and coast. Conversely, there are possibilities of isolated thunderstorms over the southwest in the morning. And as we progress into the afternoon, possibilities of isolated thunderstorms over the southern parts of Kebbi, the high grounds of the central states, some parts of Abakaliki, Enugu, Owerri, and the coastal belts are not unlikely. And that's where we conclude the weather forecast for today. Thank you for watching.
All right, there you have the weather outlook for the rest of the day. On that note, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. God willing. I'm Rhoda Anonam.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Thank you for being with us. We enjoy the rest of your day.
Oga, what do you want me to do about it? Give us light. That's the only thing you've been saying since you came into my office. Maybe your work be that. No, it's my work, but see.
Our government fit do their work if we sef do our own work. No just sit down. Carry wetin dey worry you, go meet who suppose solve am.
Yes.
This is the network service of the NTA.
On the headlines, Kano Pillars regain the top spot in the Nigerian Professional Football League. Nigerian para powerlifters return with new world records from Dubai. Plus, correspondent takes a look at the impact of continuous postponement of National Sports Festival. A very good morning to you, and thanks indeed for joining us live on another edition of